Are you a Christian? If so, how long? If not, why not?
He became my role model. I'm not talking about being perfect, but it's about day in and day out doing your best to be Christ-like.
Representative McGill is making history as the first African American to be voted in as mayor in Fort Smith.
People say, I have faith, but do you really know what it feels like? That's when you experience the real joy of having a relationship with God. Oftentimes, what we perceive as being broken is just another gift from God to help you.
Fort Smith grew last year in 2024.
And our goal always is to make our city better today than what it was yesterday.
Welcome to the show with high hopes and good vibes. My name is Joe Klein.
And I'm Erica Bankston.
And you're now listening to
Cheerful Thoughts.
Welcome back to the podcast. It is 2026. I hope everyone is having a very blessed year. So good that maybe you have some cheerful thoughts leading into the year 2026. Today, I am here sitting with my good friend. We've gotten to know each other over the last 2 years because we see each other everywhere, all around Fort
That's
Smith.
true.
The mayor of Fort Smith, Mayor McGill, and we are here to talk about leadership and faith, which is two hard things to mix. I know in history, it's always fought against each other, and now we're talking about what it looks like in his position. So welcome to the podcast, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's always good to see you.
Yes.
And I appreciate the great work you do for our city.
Thank you. First, let's start off with an easy question. Are you a Christian? And if so, how long? If not, why not?
I am. A little history. My dad was a minister, was a Baptist minister, and so I grew up in the church. I was a PK. I was a preacher's kid, and but my life was normal like any other kid. So. My culture and my roots are rooted in God and Jesus' teachings.
Mm. Now, you talk about your life, and I know where you're from, but some of the people may not know. Talk about your life. Where are you from? What did those days look like? Because I know for me growing up, I grew up in church too, and there was a whole lot of church. It was Monday. It seemed like, I think Monday, Wednesday, Sunday morning and Sunday evening. And so when you grow up in these kind of smaller communities in Arkansas, your family is connected to ministry in some way, you're just there all the time.
My life was church filled, a lot of church. But I was born and raised right here in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and have chosen to live here and do my work here and serve here. But my dad was the minister when I was coming up, the largest African-American church one of the largest African-American congregations in the city and the state, really. And it's the King Solomon Missionary Baptist Church. Times and have changed, and the congregation isn't what it used to be. Of course, we understand how those things take place. But I spent my childhood going to church and being a part of church. And as a youth, the church was a big part of our everyday life in the sense that a big part of our education came from the church. We had our Sunday school teachers, or our teachers at the church were also our tutors for school. They
after school programs.
After school, they took time. And even during the regular day at church, they would pull us aside if we needed anything. They were always available. So church has always been a big, big part of my life. My dad was a minister for 45 years. And I joined church at a very early age, at the age of 12. Of course, at that time, I joined church because all my buddies joined church.
Yes.
And so I joined to be a part of that. But yeah, I've been a part of church, part of, a faith-based household all of my life.
I remember growing up, the way I don't know if I told the story on this podcast before, but I remember being in church when I was 6 years old, and I felt like there was always a revival going on back then. It was like every other month, revival night. And I remember being 6 years old, sitting on the pew, and revivals going on, people dancing around. It's what, nowadays it's what you think of when you hear black church. That's
Sure.
what was happening. They had the organ going. People.
Sure.
And I just remember sitting under those pews, um, and I said to God, I'm too young to get serious about this
Mm-hmm.
now. I need to live some life. Let me live some life.
Mm-hmm.
And around, I said at 14, that's when I'll get serious about
Mm-hmm.
this whole Christian thing. And I remember that. I don't know why I remember that because it's like one of the only things I remember from that age. But when I got to 14 years old, for some reason, I remembered that. So I went to church, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I became a Christian, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote. But one thing I'm curious about, because you said you went to one of the biggest predominantly black churches, is
Mm-hmm.
what do you think about when you hear black church, white church nowadays? Because I know that, segregation, quote unquote, textbook segregation isn't a thing. But I mean, we still have black church, white church, and everybody knows that and everybody talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that when you hear that?
You know, we're creatures of habit, creatures of our culture.
Hmm.
So in my case, I still attend the same church that I joined when I was 12.
Hmm.
Um, and so that to me has no um, significance to your relationship with God
Hmm.
and your faith. That's just where you go.
Hmm.
And most people go where they go based off of family history. It's where my mom and dad went, grandma and grandpa went here. And so it's most of it is related to tradition, where
Yes.
you've gone to church all your life. And
Yes.
so, with that said, I visited many churches, many denominations, uh, many races, creeds, and colors
Hmm.
over my lifetime.
Hmm.
And what I've discovered is the spiritual experience is the same when your mindset is on God.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think the results is the same. The music may vary somewhat.
Hmm.
The choir may vary somewhat in the selections or songs that they sing. But I think the religious experience is one that's to me is what is talked about. That you'll see people from all races, creeds, and colors,
Yes.
and they will speak many different languages, and they will sing differently. But I think that the spiritual connection will be there.
Yes. There's this clip I saw online. It was Denzel Washington, and maybe you've seen it as well. He was talking, they were asking him about this movie that he played, and it was all black actors in it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, why did y'all choose to do that? Why did y'all choose to
Mm-hmm.
cast all black actors? Was it a race thing? And he said, well, person asking me who was a white person, he said,
Mm-hmm.
do you know what the smell of a hot comb hitting the hair at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning smells like? No, you don't. We do. So it's an experience thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a black thing. And I think the same thing. Like you can go to a black church, you can go to a white church, you can go to a Hispanic church.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're all focused on the same thing, it's a different experience, even though the congregation may look a little bit different.
That's true.
It's a connection, a piece of it all. So you said you've been a Christian since you were young. How has that changed over the years? I mean, you're still here. How has that changed over the years that you've been in Fort Smith, your
I mean,
relationship?
uh, as a child, you do what you see the adults do. You do the things that you think will please your parents, and certainly becoming a member of the church and getting baptized. I knew that would please my dad, being a minister.
Mhm.
He cherished the moment that he had a chance to baptize his son. These kinds of things, but and so I've always believed in God.
Mhm.
I always had faith in God. But it was later on in my life that I actually began to experience and practice the teachings that my dad preached about and talked about. I began to practice being kind.
Mm.
I began to practice being soft spoken. I began to experiment what it's like to forgive. What is that like to truly forgive someone?
Mm.
I began to pray for people. I began to do the things that he had talked about rather than just having this feeling that I'm a Christian.
Mhm.
And so once I began to practice what I call Christianity, that's when my life truly changed.
Mm.
It really changed because I could see the benefits of living that type of life. I could see the benefit of being kind. I could see I would reap the benefit of being generous.
Mm.
I would reap the benefits of having the courage to pray for people, even those that didn't like me or had ugly things to say about me. I had the courage to do what was asked by Christ in the Bible.
Mm.
And he became my role model.
Mm.
Now, I'm not talking about being perfect by no stretch. But then again, as I matured, I realized it's not about perfection, but it's about day in and day out,
Mm-hmm.
doing your best to be Christ-like
Mm-hmm.
as he lived.
Mm.
He forgave people. He served people. He was there to help people. He comforted people. And he made a difference in people's lives. So it's about having that attitude day in and day out. When you get up in the morning, my attitude is serving. My attitude is to pray for those who need prayer. My attitude is to give and share. And living that lifestyle has really made a difference for me. Can't speak for anyone else, but I know what has worked for me.
Mm.
And as I live out the truths that my dad taught me and that I began to try later on in life, I found that in my life, they've been very true. And, you know, I do thorough examination of my health day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
And my health is good. And all is well in my family and my household. And I know that those are gifts from God.
Mm-hmm. There are two things that stuck out to me. You talked about forgiveness, and I think something that a lot of people don't think about or even recognize if you look at someone's journey is there's really like two steps of forgiveness that you walk through in becoming a Christian. The first step is you realize that Jesus has forgiveness for you, for your sins. Then later on in life, it varies depending on how stubborn someone could be or where you were at in your walk in your relationship. But the second forgiveness that comes along later, and this is just from my learned experience, is the forgiveness of you forgiving yourself.
Sure.
Jesus forgives you, so now you're allowed to forgive yourself. This one's way different because when you forgive yourself, you begin to walk with authority. Because if you don't forgive yourself, if you just go through life, that person looks a lot different than the person who actually forgives themselves. That person is a lot less hard on themselves, you know?
And it's written that it says you must forgive, and that was something that I struggled with in my life. This idea of forgiving even those that despitefully do things to you or say ugly things about you. How do you do that? And I began to read and read and read until I found the answer. It says, if you want to be a child of God, you must forgive. All of a sudden, it became easy to do that because that's what I want to be. I want to be that person that's a reflection of a good man, which Jesus was. And so forgiveness became quite easy. And, you know, it says, don't worry about a thing, but be thankful for everything.
Yes.
I began to adopt those in my day-to-day life. And so once you begin to practice your belief, once you get a chance to experience what faith feels like. People say, I have faith, but do you really know what it feels like?
Yes.
That's when you experience the real joy of having a relationship with God.
Yes. If no one else hears anything or gets anything from this podcast, because I really do feel like what's being said is from God and of God. One thing that completely changed my life last year, and you just talked about it, you hit it on the head, is the don't worry part. Last year, I approached 2025 with not worrying. You know, if I don't have enough bank account money in my bank, don't worry. I have food. I have a place to sleep. If I don't worry. And I know that's so, so hard to do.
It
But
can
I
be.
just gave it every time the thought will become of worry. First of all, I would think two things. Jesus didn't die on the cross for you to worry.
No.
He didn't die on the cross for you to stress out about not having money to go do blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah. Jesus didn't die for that. So if you're going to stress out about that,
Hmm.
then you're making what Jesus did meaningless in that
Hmm.
point. So that's the first thing that I realized. Two, what is it going to help? If you don't have something, do you think sitting there on your couch stressing, lowering your days alive through stress, do you think that's actually going to help anything? It's not. So why do it?
Right.
Give it to God and then say, go do the best you can to fix the problem. But that's different than stressing.
You know, it boils down to we're so accustomed to being in complete control of our lives.
Mhm.
And that's when the stress and worry comes in, when we can't fix what we think is broken.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, what we perceive as being broken is just another gift from God to help you with something, or
Yes.
let you experience His power in a situation,
Yes.
to to bring you to a situation where you call on Him, where you get to that point where you just have to say, "Help me."
Yes.
Help
Yes.
me. You stop worrying about trying to fix it. You stop worrying about who's on the other end of it. You get to the point where your trust and faith is to the point where you humble yourself and simply say, "Help me."
Yes.
And when you can get to that point, then the anxieties, the fears, and all of those things will diminish quickly when you understand who He is,
Mhm.
who the Creator is. You think of, and and there's evidence of God everywhere.
Yes.
There's evidence everywhere.
Mhm.
I was talking with my grandson, and we were talking about God and all. And certainly it's hard for them to understand maybe, but I said, take a look at your hands. So he held his hands up. I said, man, you got some big, strong hands. He says, only God can make those.
Hmm.
And He makes them by the millions every day. Man can't make that. Man can put you on the moon. Man can do all kinds of things that still mesmerize me. But man can't make a hand like you have.
Hmm.
Man can't make an eye like you have.
Mhm.
Man cannot make a tree grow. He can plant the seed, but he has no control over the growth.
Hmm.
And there's 10,000 pieces of evidence that God exists and that He's real. And once we realize that and put our faith and hope in that power, then we can be at that place where He talks about perfect peace.
Yes.
You can be in that place of peace in the midst of your difficulties and trials and heartaches. You can still be at a place of peace, knowing He says,
Mhm.
I didn't bring you here to harm you.
Mhm.
I'm going to get you through this. And it reminds me of some of the scriptures that I love, some of the verses that I love. You know, yea, though I walk through these valleys and shadows of death, I fear no evil.
For the Lord is with me.
Yes. And then He says, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. That's two objects.
Yes.
He says, I prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That means they can't do anything about it but watch.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
says, then I'll anoint your head with oil in the presence of your enemy. That means I'll bless you right in front of them while they're trying to do everything possible to harm you. I'll bless you.
That's good.
And you will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. All He wants us to do is be a good guy.
Mhm.
That's what I teach young people. I said, again, it's not about perfection. None of us will never be perfect, and we're going to make mistakes time and time and time again. But do we believe
Mhm.
that Jesus, that he is who he is and who he
Yes.
says he is, and that he has the power to heal, to save. And I've lived long enough that he's shown me on many occasions
Mhm.
that I'm here.
Mhm. I haven't lived that long, but I agree. I've been
You,
seeing that too.
you, I promised me
Mhm.
on many occasions over my lifetime.
Mhm.
He's done things where there's no doubt
Yes.
he's present.
Yes.
And there's no doubt he just saved your life.
Yes. So earlier I said there was two things. The second thing that I actually want to touch on that came from you is you said, truth. So someone in your position, being a mayor for Smith,
Mhm.
that's super important. So I'm curious when it comes to your faith and what you apply in your workplace, because when you're a Christian, it is who you are. There aren't two separate
Mhm.
versions. How do you measure that truth? What do you measure as truth? Period. Definition. How do you do that?
How do I measure it? I measure, uh, like you said, it's simply the truth.
Mhm.
What are the facts? What do they say?
Mhm.
Now, sometimes I agree or disagree,
Mhm.
but the truth is the truth.
Mhm.
Um, and and I try to lead or try to represent my city in a manner that people can trust what we say we're going to do,
Mhm.
or at least we're going to give it our very, very best effort
Mhm.
to do what we say we're going to do.
Yes.
And our goal always is to make our city and our region better
Mhm.
today than what it was yesterday. So with those things in mind, it's easy to focus on which direction you should be going. Uh, if I want my city better, I want more streets paved.
Mhm.
If I want my city better, I want another level of service in the police department, in the fire department, in our utility department.
Mhm.
I'm always looking for a better level of service. And that's not to say we don't give it. We give some of the best service you can find in any city.
Yes.
And I hear compliments about those services and how good our employees are in giving those services. But again, we can always be better.
That's a good segue into my next question that I actually have for you. Talking about direction, can you give me a real world example of how your faith has affected a decision that you've made in this role?
And there was a time I worked for another company, and I had a boss that maybe was not rooted in the same kind of faith or Christianity that I am. And he requested that I fire some people in the department that I ran. And I asked him, I said, why should I fire some people? He said, well, your management style is not tough like I want it to be. I want you to be tough on the people. I said, that's not my management style. Um, and he says, well, I think if you do it that way, if you're tough and you frighten the people, you'll get a lot more work out of it. And my thinking was, they're giving me their very best right now because we do have a good environment in my department.
Mhm.
And with that, I didn't think anything else about it. But a month later, he approached me again. Who are you going to fire? For no reason. I said, are you serious? He says, yes. He says, you can always hire some people back 2 or 3 months after this. We live in a state, this is a right to work state, and you can fire people without a cause. I said, but why should I let anybody go? I need all of the people in my department now. He said, I want to change the attitude of your department. I want them to fear you. And I decided that I was not going to fire people. And I told him, I said, I can't do that. I need all the people. And you wanted me to fire 5 people in my department.
Mhm.
So I can't do that. He said, well, you know what that means? And I said, you tell me. He said, that means you're being insubordinate when you don't follow my directions. And that means I can fire you for being insubordinate. I said, you will not have to fire me. And I gave him the keys to the office. I had a brand new house under construction, a brand new car sitting in the parking lot. But that was, to me, was not morally right. And again, it's one of those times I felt like God positioned me to be tested.
Mm.
Are you going to trust me, or are you going to do something you know is not right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not legally wrong to do it. You can do that. But morally, will you do that?
Mm.
And I chose not to do that.
Mm.
But it was a month later that my career and life and everything changed to something that I would have never imagined.
Mm. Do you ever feel like you face tension with the fact that you are a Christian in your work environment? Is there any, not from colleagues, just from the role itself and the demand that it has? Do you feel like that alone?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. I'm not ashamed of my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Not ashamed, because they work for me. Now, whatever people try, being kind, what level they try forgiving, what level they try to produce what the Bible talks about, the fruits of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I know that has worked for me in my life.
Yes.
It's worked for me. And that's what I hang my hat on.
Hmm.
That's what I hang my hat on. And I have not been disappointed in anything that I've done when I've done it in a Christ-like manner.
There are some people who may be listening to this, and I'm sure they're listening to it as they're in their workplace right now, maybe in their cubicle at
Mm-hmm.
ArcBest, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're on a drive or they're doing some dishes
Mm-hmm.
with the kids running crazy. But how do you actually balance, or what advice would you give to someone who is wanting to be their God self
Mm-hmm.
in the environments that they're in,
Mm-hmm.
workplace wise, but they're maybe not struggling to do that, but maybe there's some fears and things. What advice would you give to those people who are wanting to?
It boils down to your faith and trust in God. If you believe that there is a God, and again, there's 100,000 pieces of evidence that there is.
Yes.
Talk to any smart physicist, and he will tell you there is a supreme something out here.
Mm-hmm.
He may not call it God, but he'll say there is something out here
Yes.
that can bring the smallest atoms and neutrons and protons together to produce life. There's something
Mm-hmm.
in charge of all of that.
Mm.
I say, pray.
Yeah.
God knows who we are. He's, in my opinion, like my dad would often say, he's anxious to hear from you.
Yes.
And he talks in the same language you talk in. He uses the same words and phrases you do.
Mm-hmm.
Because he can communicate with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And just petition him to help you be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Petition him and ask him to teach you how to be kind. Even when the situation may allow you to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, if something happens, then your friends, family, and others, they can tell you, man, I would do this, I would do that. But do you have the courage to do what's right?
Mm.
Do you have the courage to stand alone and do what's right? Oftentimes, the popular position is not the right position. Do you have the courage to stand by yourself, knowing what the position you're in is the right position?
Mm-hmm.
And having the courage to trust it. It says faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. The question is, what is it that you want?
Mm. I think that's a good note to end on. The faith is the hope. Say it again.
Faith is the substance of things hoped for
Mm-hmm.
and the evidence of things unseen.
Okay, last question for you to end on. Imagine Jesus
Mm-hmm.
is here in 2026, which is weird to say 2026 already. And he is the mayor of Fort Smith. Jesus is mayor. What would that look like?
It's no secret what he would do.
Mm-hmm.
He would produce the fruits of the Spirit. In other words, he would be kind. He would be forgiving. He would be long-suffering.
Mm-hmm.
When people act up, and he wouldn't give up on them. He would pray for people. Those would be the things that you could expect him to do. And he would lead by example. That's what I try to do, is try to lead by example. I don't get caught off guard by negative commentary. It does no good.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would lead by example.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought about when that question came out of my mouth is, first of all, I think that it would look like, most people in the Fort Smith Forum would hate him. They wouldn't like him. Because that's what that's what it already had looked like when he was on Earth before.
Sure.
I think that, two, I would be very interested to see how he leads because, one thing that Jesus always done is he didn't speak to the subject at hand. He spoke to the heart behind the subject at hand.
Sure.
And only Jesus knew that heart to speak to. So it'd be very interesting to see what that looks like in that position, him speaking to people and seeing the pre-notions of what they're trying to do when they're asking one thing, but they're really asking for another. And I also think that we would see true revival. When you have persecution in that manner, you also see this hand coming from up, pressing everything up, this God-like hand. And I think that, that's what it would look like.
Now, I didn't say that was easy, but God's forgiving as well. So again, as long as my tendency is to be Christ-like, I find myself in a good place.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's always my pleasure to be with you, Joe. You've been a welcome addition to our city, and you always scare me when you have that baby on that motor scooter thing you've got.
Hey, I get the job done, just like you.
I know it, but with the baby strapped to your chest.
Oh, my goodness. That's so funny. Well, thank you again, and I'm sure we'll be hearing some more from you soon.
Okay, thanks for having me.